Well, I don't know about you, but I'm late, like a minute or two. Wow. And there are people here. Hi, everybody. How's it going? Sorry, I'm a little bit behind. So we'll go ahead and jump in. If you're here live, which you are right now, because I haven't started the recorded part yet. If you're here live, good to see everybody active in the chat room, and I'll come to the chat room as soon as I'm done. Hank, I'm sort of addressing your thing today. Kind of, because somebody else sent feedback, and I was like, yeah, right. There was that thing that Hank sent in as well. Um, between you and me, well, I can tell you about that later. Yeah, I'll tell you about that later. Sorry, I just got caught in my notes. All right, there's everybody. I seem to be the one who's not here. So why don't we get started? And we'll see if I turn up somewhere along the way. Got to check one more thing. There we go. That is good. That is gone. And we're golden. Retail and HomePods and feedback. Oh my. It is Thursday, the 22nd of October, 2020, and this is macOS Ken Live. Hi, everybody. Ken Ray here. Thank you very much for joining me for this thing that we do every Monday through Friday, 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern. It is, of course, macOS Ken Live. Did I say I'm Ken Ray? I think I did. I still am. It might be worth repeating in case one or all of us forget. Coming up in the second part of the show, there was a headline that just got stuck in my head. Probably not going to spend a lot of time on it. It's the same kind of thing that we've talked about before with TV. It was somebody's thoughts. Can't remember who off the top of my head, but somebody's thoughts on HomePod. Canales actually had some thoughts on HomePod. Many will hit those really quickly. Honestly, probably spend more time in the second part of the show doing feedback because there were a couple of things that people have sent to me that I thought would be worth going over. First part of the show, though, I want to talk about Apple Retail. Not because there's anything in particular going on with Apple Retail, but just because there's a lot of news about Apple Retail today. A lot of it looks more dire than it turns out to be when you read into it. First one that I saw was from iMore, actually said that 7 Italian Apple stores are closing this weekend on iPhone 12 launch weekend. I sort of assumed that meant that things were going poorly in Italy, but it turns out it's preventative. First of all, the stores are going to be open on iPhone launch day, which is tomorrow, which in Italy is like any minute now. And of course, they're going to open regular hours and stuff like that. So, store in Milan, Turin, and other places that I can't pronounce. Oh, actually, 3 in Milan, 2 in Turin, and then only 2 in places that I can't pronounce. All going to be closing on Saturday and Sunday. But this is actually, I don't want to say government mandated, but I guess it's government mandated. It's not the Apple stores that are closing. In fact, it's not even Apple that's closing the stores. Those regions are saying, right, all the stuff that people normally go out and do on the weekend, we're not doing that this weekend. They're trying to tamp the resurgence of COVID-19. So kind of a scary story when you first see it, thinking, oh man, things are getting worse. They're just trying to keep things from getting even more worse. That was one of the reasons I wanted to hit that one, honestly, because back in March, Apple closed all of its stores except for the ones in China, which it had already closed and was reopening, right? And then they started reopening stores, and you thought, hey, this is in our rear view mirror. But not unlike windy roads in Italy, sometimes, things that are in your rear view mirror, the road twists and turns, and things that were behind you are suddenly in front of you. So it's good, I guess, that Italy is getting in front of this. Something that's more lasting, or could be more lasting anyway. Michael Stieber has been on top of this whole Apple Express retail thing. Michael Stieber from 9 to 5 Mac. He's become, I can't remember who it was that used to do IFO Apple Store. Gary, last name escapes me. I want to say Gary Allen. I think that might be correct. Michael Stieber works for 9 to 5 Mac. So he's not quite Gary Allen because Gary just went and did it on his own, right? He grew a website just from his interest in Apple retail himself. I'm not saying that Michael is not into that, but Michael's been on top of Apple retail in ways that a lot of other places haven't been, including talking earlier this week about the fact that Apple has expanded the number of Express stores that it's set up. So I couldn't figure out why everybody was talking about it today, because he talked about it earlier this week. Why would that suddenly resurge? It turns out it's because Reuters ran a piece on the expansion of the Express retail thing. They get a quote from Deirdre O'Brien, who, of course, is now the head of Apple Retail and People, if memory serves. Yes, senior VP of Retail and People at Apple. What she told Reuters, let me back up. If you don't know what these are, apparently, well, I got a description of it here. Where is it? Okay. First trialed in September, the stores feature a wall built in front of the main store with sales counters protected by plexiglass. There are also a few shelves of accessories, such as phone cases and AirPods, that customers can choose to buy while they're checking out. It's an impulse buy thing, except instead of 89-cent M&Ms, it's $150 AirPods. I guess if you're there, though, picking up something that costs between $700 and $2,000, $150 can feel like an impulse buy. It's set up right there. I'll take a National Enquirer, some of those peanut M&Ms, and a case of AirPods Pro. Ms. O'Brien says it's a swifter way for us to serve customers. It allows us to maintain all the appropriate social distancing and maintain all of our health protocols within our stores. There are currently 20 Express stores set up, both here in the U.S. and in other parts of the world. They're hoping to have those at 50 by the end of this month. Trying not to get depressed about that. I mean, there are temporary walls and they're plexiglass stands. So, I mean, this could be just, temporary stuff. I do also understand why they would want to go ahead and get as many as they can now, because obviously we're not going to be done with COVID-19 by the end of this year. Christmas is coming. The goose, I haven't checked lately, but Christmas is coming. There are 2 more new iPhones coming after this week. Plus, people are going to be picking up iPhones or going to get cases and things like that as they get their new iPhones and decide, oh, I should have gotten that thing as well. There are lots of reasons to do this. It's also a little bit of a bummer, but lots of things are. Customers will need to make an appointment to pick up orders placed online or schedule an appointment for Apple's Genius Bar. O'Brien says this option doesn't work well for Apple retail locations within shopping malls or areas where the curb is too far from the storefront. You see, I would think that this would actually work fine in shopping malls. What wouldn't work would be malls. Because if you think about it, like my local Apple store is one of those freestanding deals. So it's like glass on 2 sides of it, nowhere near the curb. I don't think they've done express pickup there. Walls on the other 2 sides. Most of the ones that I've seen in malls, you walk in the door and it's like a long bus, all the way to the back. Like the one at Caesars. Have you been to the one at Caesars? The one at Caesars is like walking into a time capsule. And you could argue, going to Vegas is like walking into a time capsule, and so is going to Caesars. But the one at Caesars was obviously one of the better stores after the first stores opened. They still have a Genius Bar, at least the last time I was there, which was about a year and a half ago. They still have a Genius Bar with the Genius logo and the old tables and, some of the new signage, but nothing like new. So I would think that a mall location would actually work perfectly for this, unless the problem is the mall, as I say. Sad news for one Apple store. The one in Uptown in Minneapolis, Minnesota, is closing permanently. It turns out, if you read the article, and the article came from the Minneapolis Star, the Minneapolis Tribune, the Minneapolis Picayune, I cannot tell you. Star Tribune, actually, so I got it 2/3 right. It turns out the area where the Apple Store is has actually been on the skids for a while. The article that I read said that a Victoria's Secret closed there last year. Some other retailers began closing there. When the March lockdown came around for everybody, Apple did, of course, close that store because they closed them all. Never opened that one again. And then, of course, you had the killing of George Floyd there earlier this year and the riots there. So Apple actually says that they were already looking at transitioning out of that store. They're already looking at closing it. Um, and then COVID-19 and riots. And yeah, that's unfortunately going to do it for that one. The damage from the riots did accelerate the timing of the closure, according to the Star Tribune, but Apple was already in discussions to close the store before the pandemic and the riots, the company said. Here's the best part, and this is similar to when Microsoft decided to get out of retail, but went ahead and said, we'll offer people other positions and things like that. Apple's doing the same thing. Our stores in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area have served our customers for 19 years, and our nearly 500 team members look forward to helping out customers for a long, long time, Apple said in a statement on Thursday. That we've made the difficult decision to permanently close Apple Uptown. That's the name of the store. All of our valued team members will be offered other positions within Apple, and we look forward to continuing to serve our customers at our 4 nearby stores. So they're not leaving the area, and that's good. But the best part is they're not leaving their workers high and dry. The people who showed up every day to do their job, it's not their fault that, that section of town ended up not being the best section of town for retail. And again, this was a problem that started last year. That they stuck around as long as they did is cool. And that they're sticking with their employees. I'm sorry, not to be all rah, 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 but rah, rah, rah. That they're sticking with their employees is something. I actually had down in the notes that there are no job losses, but there are job losses. I mean, when downtown closes down, there are restaurants that were mentioned in that article that haven't done very well. And why would they? Because who wants to go eat next to a store that used to be open? Who wants to go eat next to a store that used to be something? But they got to do what they got to do. I did mention that there was an Apple store that caught on fire. It's not as bad as it sounds. This one also in Vegas. This is the town square in Las Vegas. The report was that store caught fire. Firefighters got a call at 6:20 this morning. They had the whole thing out by 7:10 in the morning. It was a fire on the 3rd floor. It looks like it was electrical. Nobody was hurt. No foul play suspected. Or is there? I don't know. I'm curious what the place is for retail. It's weird because it's not as much fun to go to the Apple store. I mean, to go to the Apple online store. And by the way, bone to pick. I ordered a watch band a week ago, and it says today, if I go check the Apple Store app right now, it says today it's going to be delivered by 9:00 last night. So I'm really excited. That truck that I heard outside earlier may have actually been my watch band finally showing up. That's my own problem, though, and you got your own problems, and we can talk about all those some other time. Coming up in just a minute, I want to talk about HomePod Mini really quickly. First, though, I want to tell you about a show that I did today. Well, last night for today. One of my favorite parts of doing the show, The Checklist, brought to you by Secure Mac, is the opportunity that I have to learn stuff. My favorite times are the times that I have an expert on who can just go ahead and educate me. Sometimes, though, it's just me hitting a couple of news stories and things that we can do around the issues raised. I am happy with today's episode of The Checklist, but I'm not happy about the content. It's about how it's about how voters are being targeted with misinformation via email, actual intimidation emails. That's the first part of that show. Second part is how people are using interest in politics as a fishing lure, PHISHING. They're going fishing with people caring about the state of democracy. Good news is I also got to talk about some stuff that we can do to fight against that. So, securemac.com/checklist if you want to read the notes and play along right there, or wherever you get podcasts, just search for Secure Mac or search for The Checklist by Secure Mac. And share that show with people if you would. This is one of those things that I don't really know how it is that we go ahead and talk about this, how we raise this, conversation with friends or family members. Maybe if you could just hip them to what's going on that show, they can start listening to it, and then you won't even have to worry. You can just, instead of saying, "Have you changed your password?" You can just say, "Have you listened to The Checklist?" Anyway, that's the thing, and I'd love it if you would check it out. I don't have a lot to say on HomePod Mini, honestly, except that there was a headline that got in my craw, and we all know how painful that can be. From Mac Rumors, Canalys, Apple still has much to prove with the HomePod Mini in crowded smart speaker market. Now, I don't know if that was actually the name of the Canalys report or if that's just the headline with which Mac Rumors went. If that was just the headline with which they went, kudos to them because it worked, because it made me hate read it. Because I don't think Apple has a thing to prove with HomePod Mini, because Apple doesn't have to succeed in HomePod Mini. I would love for Apple to succeed in HomePod Mini. I would love for it to be a great device. I have about decided I am going to go ahead and get one, not because $99 is nothing, but I can afford $99 to see how this improves the ecosystem and how the thing actually works, right? I guess that is a line, though, from Canalys, because Mac Rumors does quote the firm, saying Apple still has much to prove to attract users, especially as the HomePod Mini is up against other new $99 devices, which are larger in size and with assistants perceived to be smarter. See, I would say assistants that can do more tricks. And I would say assistants that, I don't know, occasionally. Have you noticed how Siri has stopped doing dumb things? I'm not saying Siri is smart now. I'm not saying Siri is the best now. I'm going to stop saying Siri, though, because I'm turning on HomePods and iPhones all over the place. Except they didn't say, hey, what's your name? There were a couple of things that happened early on where Apple did some gimmicky stuff with Siri, including like the how to hide a body thing, and some other stuff that they did that I kind of felt like that's not necessarily the thing that we should be doing if you want people to take this seriously as an actual tool. I don't know. When they say assistants that are perceived to be smarter, as I say, they can do more tricks. I tend to worry more about the fact that some of those other assistants that they're talking about have actually emailed entire conversations to other people. I worry about how hackable those things have been, although 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100 even, the hackability of those has nothing to do with the device itself nor the platform, but with people using, the same password for a million things or using stupid passwords for them. Anyway, it just kind of got to me, the whole they have to prove something, because no, they don't. They have to prove something with iPhone. They have to keep proving something with iPhone. Almost everything else they do, they have to keep proving something with the Mac as well. I was thinking about that earlier today. Like, I worry sometimes that I make apologies for Apple. I don't think it's quite that. Apple can afford to screw up an iPhone. They can actually afford to screw up a whole iPhone, I think. Much like the fiery hellscape that was the Samsung Galaxy Note. What was it called? The fiery hellscape that is the Samsung Galaxy Note 7 disaster gate. I can't remember what I called it. But you remember how Samsung made a phone that caught fire? Samsung made a phone that caught fire. It grounded planes. It became illegal to take one of those on a plane. Samsung made a phone that was literally catching fire in people's pockets. And people said, well, that's it for the Galaxy line. That's it for Samsung. And they're fine. If the next one had caught fire and the one after that had caught fire, then you would have had problems. They're to such a size at this point that they can afford to mess up in really spectacular ways. Same goes for Apple. If they do it again, they do it again, and they do it again, well, then you've eventually got a real problem, because that will bleed out of the, nerd tech sphere into people knowing maybe that's something I want to stay away from. That said, HomePod's just a thing. HomePod Mini is just a thing. You can say, well, they're going to have a hard time competing against the Echo Dot, but guess what? They're going to have a hard time competing against the Echo Dot no matter what, because when Apple was selling a $300 smart speaker, Amazon was selling, how many could you get for 6 for the same price? 8 for the same price, maybe? They're going to have a hard time competing just because the thing was cheap and it's everywhere. And people do like being able to tell their, Amazon connected device to order them something and have it turn up the next day because they're talking straight to Amazon. I'm excited about the HomePod Mini. Do I think it's going to burn the house down? Ha! Sorry. Do I think it's going to set the world on fire? Is that a better way to say it? I doubt it. But I don't think it's gonna be so bad that Apple's gonna have to bug out. I think the fact that they're introducing a new, smaller one, that they're talking about the interconnectivity, I think what they're saying is they're gonna be there for a while, and they can afford to do that. I don't think it has that much to prove, honestly, although I am looking forward to it proving itself to me. Fingers crossed. Let's do a bit of feedback really quickly. This is actually tied to in a few minutes, which I think this ought to be the place that we do feedback for everything because, after the show, for people who aren't here live, I actually talk feedback in the chat room as well. This is a more conversational place, though. So, anyway, if you'll forgive me, this is feedback not for the live show, but for in a few minutes. Brian wrote in saying that he had listened to the show that I did with Tom Merritt earlier this week, covering Twitter and Facebook and stories they allow on their sites. This came from the story about Hunter Biden that ran in the New York Post. Basically, Twitter blocked the story because the story was so horribly sourced, because the story read like bad fiction. There were so many holes in it that Twitter said, we can't. And then people said, you better. And so Twitter said, okay. And so they went back to doing that. Tom's position was that it's a slippery slope. Who is Twitter to be the arbiter? Shouldn't they just be a conduit? Seemed to be his thinking. Brian thinks not. He says the assumption is that social media is the public square. Not so. The internet is the public square, he says. Twitter and Facebook are like a McDonald's on the public square, and people go inside McDonald's yelling about their lack of vegan options being literal fascism. They're private companies, not the public square. If you don't like their policies or products, you don't have to go and use them. He goes on to say, how we think about and define the public square and social media are important. I think most people don't draw a distinction, and the distinction is very important. The problem that I have with this whole conversation is I don't think anybody is wrong exactly. I agree with Brian. Twitter and Facebook are not the internet. Twitter and Facebook are things that happen on the internet at the same time. For a lot of people, Facebook is the internet, the way AOL was the internet to a lot of people. I initially didn't understand the difference between AOL and the internet back in the day because AOL was how I got to the internet. For a lot of people, Facebook is just what they do online. Now, I don't know that Hank was upset with Tom's. Well, no, scratch that. Hank wrote in earlier this week. He was also upset about Tom's stance because, like I say, the Biden story was just crap. It was horribly sourced. It was flimsy at best. Some of the people who wrote on the Biden story wouldn't even put their names on the Biden story. This is not political. It's a question of journalism. And this is the problem that I kind of had. I found myself both agreeing and disagreeing with Hank and both agreeing and disagreeing with Tom. The New York Post is a newspaper. Some say it's a crappy newspaper. Some say this was just a crappy story that ran in an okay newspaper. Who gets to decide which ones you listen to? The Washington Examiner is nothing as far as people on the left are concerned, while the Washington Post is nothing as far as people on the right are concerned. If you can sneak something into a newspaper, right? If you can, or if you can just get somebody to run something, does that mean, well, it automatically belongs everywhere then? I don't know what the right thing to do is with the Facebook and Twitter thing as far as seeing a story that just looks awful, but is presented as news. Because the problem is the people who make those decisions can change. And what if something that you think is news gets ignored because it's not popular? The whole thing's just horrible. It's horrible. What I finally landed on for that episode of In a Few Minutes is we just actually need critical thinking skills and digital literacy skills and things like that. We need to be able to read something and say, well, we need to develop sniff tests of our own, but like real ones, not just, well, I agree with that idea, so I agree with that story. I think that might do it for today. I got one other piece of feedback, but I probably want to save that till tomorrow. So There, I've just teased something for tomorrow. Oh, do me a favor. I don't know what time iPhones and iPad Airs are gonna start showing up, but if you get yours early tomorrow, send me some feedback. Let me know how it went. Let me know if it met your expectations. Let me know how blue the blue is. There are a couple of ways to do that. You can leave a comment on this video, or because I would like to talk about people's perceptions of the phone on tomorrow's live show that happens at 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern. Send me an email when you get your phone, info@macoscan.com. When you get your phone or your iPad Air, I will be curious what you got. I will be curious what you think. I'll be curious whether 5G, like, are you like 5 minutes in the future now because you have 5G? All those things are things that I'll be wondering. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Info@macoscan.com. If you're catching the podcast of this show, I think I've said this like 9 times now, but I will remind you, we do this every day at 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern, Monday through Friday. Tons of people hanging out in the chat room, all of whom I will talk to as soon as I'm done talking to you, people listening to the podcast, which I do also thank you for doing. Sounds ungrateful when I say it that way. macOS Can tomorrow morning, macOS Can live tomorrow afternoon. I will talk to you one or both of those times. Take care. Best Buy vending machines? What? Hang on, I'm stopping the recording. I don't have my glasses on. I may have read that wrong, Bill. Right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. Wasn't it what you called Disaster Mageddon Gate? I think it was the fiery hellscape that was the Samsung Galaxy Note 7 Disaster Mageddon Gate. I believe that was it, Matthew. Thank you very much. I make up all these names and then I forget what they are. What was before that? Well, there was the Mac tablet netbook thingy. That was before the iPad. The fiery hellscape that was the Samsung Galaxy Note 7 Disaster Mageddon Gate. I feel like there's one more that I'm missing, but it's been 15 years. Anyway, I'm going to scroll back up to the top and see who said what. Yeah, Matthew, it's UPS for me as well. It was UPS. It was like, hey, your phone's getting there yesterday. What's weird is I did get an email from Apple saying, by the way, your watch band might be late. But then when I tried to, find out where it was and how it was, it just kept saying, no, it's 9 o'clock tonight, last night. So thank you kindly for that. Still working on the left coast. Okay, yeah, so you're Pacific. Sorry, I'm reading and not even telling anybody. Roger says he likes the size of the 12 mini, but he likes the Touch ID of the SE. So for now, the 6S lives on. Interesting. I saw somebody say that they felt like Apple had actually prioritized profit over public safety by not putting Touch ID in the power button of the iPhone. And, you got to figure that they knew what the iPhone 12 looked like before they had released the first iPhone 11. They were probably well on their way. Who would know that we would actually need Touch ID? Because, times were certain before the hashtag these uncertain times. Do. What else do we have? Good to see you, Rob. Good to see you, Amanda. Everybody saying, hey. Lone Locust Productions. Hey, you finally got an alert that I was here. Awesome. I'm glad you're here. I did not receive an alert that you were here, but I'm reading about it now. So we're doing great. Deborah was here. Hello, Deborah. Donna was here. Hello, David. All right, I'm trying to get the comments. Make an Apple vending machine. Oh, that's why the Best Buy vending machine, I guess, came up. An Apple vending machine. It's an interesting idea, although you still do want the human interaction, right? If not the human touch. I mean, if you're going all the way to an Apple store, that's the thing that's funny to me. I mean, this computer that I'm talking to you on right now still needs a trip to the Genius Bar. It's finding 24 hours that I can be without this computer. That's the difficult part for me. Vending machine won't give you that. It'll just give you a new computer for X amount of money. They could make a vending machine. They could make a vending machine. That's true. That automatically sprays itself. Okay, good point. Because people would touch it. All right. I think we've come to about the end of it then. See, Matthew, they actually have. I've seen in airports before, like vending machines that'll sell peripherals. I want to say even iPods back in the day when they had iPods. So, yeah. And I don't know though. Can you imagine? Like, what if it got stuck? Like if you put 75 cents into a vending machine for a Zagnut and it gets stuck, well, it's only 75 more cents and you get two. If you put $1,500 into a vending machine to get a MacBook, you see the problem. Tilt. Nice. No, that's how you end up getting crushed. That's how you end up getting crushed, John. Friend's cousin. Never happened, actually. I'm sure it happened to somebody. Anyway, this took a turn for the dark. You're vending it wrong. That's nice. Matthew, way to go. All right. I'm going to get out of here because I'm going to turn this around as a podcast and then start working on tomorrow's Mac OS Ken. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I thoroughly appreciate it. Somebody was talking earlier today. This is what I'll leave you with. Somebody was talking earlier today about interaction with listeners, with your audience, with the people for whom you produce content. This, like doing this every day, has just jazzed me so much, and it's I feel like put us back in touch in a way. So thanks for being here for it. It means a lot to me. And plus it keeps us off the streets for 30 minutes, right? I'm gone. Ciao.